Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode in this series. I think one of the things that we've been trying to do is to ensure that we have some sort of a debate or rather, some sort of a discussion around the Dharmashastras, because some of us, who are called trads, for lack of a better word, are often accused of trying to do some things or trying to push. Uh, Things that are no longer relevant, or at least that is the accusation that is often made. So this was an attempt to actually answer some of the questions and also look at the Dharma Shastras from a, for lack of a better word, again a traditional perspective. What do they actually say? One, two. It is also about uh, not just about looking at whether it's relevant or not, but looking at what they actually say. Because even before you address the question of relevance, of contextual importance, and all of those things, even the attempt to understand what they're saying is critical for us to even start asking the other questions that people seem to be asking without even engaging with the text itself. And Nithin has been doing that for several years now. He has written on it, spoken on it uh, across multiple forums, and I couldn't think of anybody else who would be able to do this better than Nithin. So it's a pleasure once again to have Nithin. Nithin is more than just a guest on the podcast. He's a friend whom we've known for several years, a person who lives in the same city as I do, and therefore, and and another thing that is also is that Nithin is an author of 6 books, a speaker, and also currently he works as the chief curator of Indica Moksha, and he is often, part of several debates that are, again, for a lack of a better word, controversial. So today we will be discussing, and before we start the discussion, Nitin is going to be making a small presentation. The topic for today's discussion is definition of dharma and its full implication. So I will hand it over to Nitin to make his initial presentation, and then we will field questions. Then we'll also see if there are questions that come up through it. Over to you.
Thank you, Ramesh, for the invitation. I have been loving these conversations on Dharmashastra, freewheeling conversations, I could say. So let me just jump into the presentation. I am really not sure of the options here. Let me just try this. Okay. Is this visible? Are my presentations visible? Ramesh, can you?
Yeah, it should be available now. Is it? Should
Okay.
you see me?
Okay. So you're able to
Yeah.
see it now?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm able to see it. I think you should also be able to see it.
Yeah, actually I am seeing my own screen. That's why. Okay. Yes, it's there. Okay, fine. Uh,
Yeah.
okay.
You might want
So,
to go to slideshow. Yes.
pardon?
You might want to go to slideshow view.
Yes, now I have gone.
Oh,
Is
okay.
it not visible? Yeah. Okay. So basically, we all have been using the term dharma in our day-to-day life, and now in a political context, in a socio-political context, in a cultural context, we have been using dharma, dharmic. This is a dharmic initiative. I am speaking from a dharmic perspective, dharmic view of this, dharmic view of that. So we have been using these terms quite loosely. And oftentimes I must say that I have seen people use it without understanding the connotation of dharma at all. I mean, we all have, of course, some kind of intuitive, instinctive understanding, some vague understanding of the term dharma, but without a proper understanding the definition of dharma, often we ourselves don't realize that many of the things that we may consider as dharma may not be dharma, or sometimes some things are dharma when we say it, the full implications does not become very obvious to us. So with that thing in mind, I just want some 10-15 slides are there, but I'll just rush through the presentation to give you some ideas about different definitions of dharma that are available in various textual traditions, Sanatana Dharma's textual tradition. So this is well known that there is no one single translation for dharma. It could refer to ethics, morality, law, justice, duty, righteousness, so many things in so many contexts. At universal context, it is rita. It in a individual context, it is about duties, ethical actions. It is about social harmony. In the context of governance, it could be law, justice. So many things are there. So we have to, and though there are so many things, our primary concern is, of course, about human actions. So, in what sense? What is the full context, full meaning of dharma in the in the sense of human actions is what we will see. So now, one of the very basic meaning definition of dharma, it is a very etymological definition, is that dharma is that which upholds. So dharma comes from, dhru dharayati is the base, which means to bear, to support, to uphold, sustain, nurture, stabilize. So dharma is the term which comes from the root dhru. So that's why dhru dharayati. The dharma is all about dharana, to bear something, to support something, to uphold something, to sustain something. So there are so many wide range of meanings. So one way to look at dharma is very fundamentally, in a fundamental sense, foundational sense, is that dharma is that which upholds. So the next question comes: what does it uphold, and what does upholding means here? So and now we have two very wonderful definitions. One is from Mahabharata. It's something that Krishna says, and then we have a definition from Mahanarayana Upanishad. So basically, the definitions
Nitin,
basically.
Nitin, are you also moving the slides? Because that is not visible
I
to
am moving
screen.
slides. Is it not visible?
Okay. On the screen, it's not moving. So just
Okay. So
both
what
on.
should I
Yeah.
do now? Uh,
Uh, yeah.
okay.
Now it's
You
moving. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
okay? I
Yeah.
think
It's
there is a
come.
time lag between
Mm-hmm.
right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in Mahabharata, Krishna says that dharana dharma ityahu dharmo dharayati praja. Same, it is playing on the concept, the etymological meaning of dharana says that Krishna says that that which upholds is called dharma, and dharma upholds all beings. Dharmo dharayati praja. All beings, praja here means all beings, all in the entire universe. It is upholded by dharma. Similarly, in Mahanarayana Upanishad, there is a wonderful verse which says that Dharma Vishwasya Jagatah Pratishta. So, Dharma supports the whole cosmos. It is Pratishta, Jagatah Pratishta. So, it supports, it bears the whole cosmos. And then again, it says that the Dharma removes the papam, and everything is established in Dharma. Therefore, Dharma is the highest. So, Dharme Sarvam Pratishtitam. So here it gives two aspects. One is dharma supports everything, upholds everything. The second is everything is found in dharma. Everything is established in dharma. So dharma acts as the foundation. So in however you see it, the first part was dharma upholds, sustains. So here the clarification is being given that dharma sustains all beings, everything in the world, all objects, all beings, everything, animate, inanimate, everything is supported by dharma, is sustained by dharma. and they are able to function because of dharma, right? So dharma is the substratum. So now, then again, the next question arises naturally. So, what does this sustaining mean in the human context? So, because this definition, you see, they are still abstract in some sense, because dharana, sustaining, upholding, it could have many different meanings. So, what does it mean actually in in the context of human beings, in the context of human actions? So here this definition from Vaisheshika Sutra is very, very important. It says, Yatho abhyudaya nishreyasa siddhihi sa dharma. So dharma is that which helps us in the accomplishment, or from which results the accomplishment, siddhi, accomplishment of abhyudaya and nishreyasa. So two words are used, abhyudaya. Abhyudaya basically is a material well-being, overall well-being in this world and the next world. Nishreyasa is ultimate good, which is moksha. So this abhyudaya is a very important term because it includes on one hand the welfare, the well-being in terms of artha and kama in this world, but it also includes abhyudaya in the terms of sukha in this world, and then swarga in the after the death of the body, and then better punarjanma and chitta shuddhi. So many things are included, and yes, chitta shuddhi also comes under nishreyasa. So chitta shuddhi comes under nishreyasa. So sukha, swarga, etc. comes under abhyudaya, and chitta shuddhi comes under nishreyasa. So dharma basically leads to overall well-being. So that is the gist of Vaisheshika Sutra. So in the human context, dharma sustains us, dharma upholds us, dharma nurtures us. How? By through dharma, we are able to accomplish, when we perform our actions, when we within the confines of the dharma, using the means of dharma, or perform the dharmika actions, then we are able to accomplish abhyudaya and nishreyasa, well-being, overall well-being. Now there is another definition which is connected to this definition. In Parashara Smriti, Parashara Rishi, he defines the dharma as hitam. Because dharma leads to overall well-being, he calls dharma as hitam. Hitam means beneficial, that which is most beneficial. So now, Sri Madhavacharya Vidyaranya, in his commentary on Parashara, that is Parashara Madhava, he elaborates on why dharma is beneficial. He says dharma is called hitam, beneficial, because it is the means to attain our desired fruits. So the very simple example is, one wants to get rich. So either we loot a bank and become rich, which is adharma, which ultimately leads to sorrow, or we use the dharmic means of hard work, smart work, an ethical means to attain that wealth, right? So dharma is hitam, it is a means to all our desired fruits. And Madhavacharya, he then says that such desired fruits are two types: aihika, this worldly, that is the kind of fruits that we attain in this world, for example, the artha, kama, and sukha, all these are this worldly. And then there is amushmika, the otherworldly things. And this otherworldly are again two types. He says one is abhyudaya, the second is nishreyasa. So abhyudaya is about sukha in the that comes in the later stage, in the next life perhaps, and swarga, better punarjanma, all these are abhyudaya. And nishreyasa is the supreme knowledge, which is liberation, that happens through chitta shuddhi. Now he makes a very important comment. He says dharma is the direct means for abhyudaya, whereas dharma is the indirect cause for nishreyasa. So dharma, by producing tattvajnana, is the indirect cause for moksha. How? Because dharma leads to Chitta Shuddhi, and through Chitta Shuddhi we then get Atma Jnana, and then through Atma Jnana we get moksha. So the point here is dharma is the direct means for abhyudaya, which includes sukha, swarga, better punarjanma in a better condition, and these three are very, very important. And also the fulfillment of artha and kama in a proper manner, which also leads to happiness and pleasure. So in short, dharma is the means for both material and spiritual well-being, this worldly as well as other worldly happiness. So that is why dharma is the most beneficial. So when we understand, when we use the term dharma, all these implications, all these meanings and underlying understandings have to be kept in mind. Now, this is a definition from Manusmriti which further clarifies on the Parashara's definition. Manusmriti says, Karmanancha vivekartham dharma dharmau vyavechayat dvandva vairayo jaya chaimaha sukha dukkadibihi prajaha. He says, Manusmriti says that for the due discrimination of actions, karmanancha vivekartham, for the discrimination, for distinguishing one kind of actions to and other kind of actions, Bhagavan differentiated dharma and adharma. That is, dharma, the term dharma and adharma is basically fundamentally a reference to actions. It's a reference to actions. So to discriminate, to differentiate between two different kinds of actions, he brought in the notion of dharma and adharma. Some actions are dharma, some actions are adharma. And what is the basis of this discrimination? What is the basis of this definition distinguishing between dharma and adharma? The second part says he connected the people who perform these actions with opposite pairs of results such as sukha, dukkha, happiness, sorrow, adi bihi. What is this adi? Swarga, naraka, attachment, hatred, and so on and so forth. So, the actions which are designated as dharma are those which are capable of giving a karmic fruit, the fruit of the karma in the form of sukha, swarga, chitta shuddhi. On the other hand, the actions designated as adharma are those which give the karma phala in the form of dukkha, sorrow, naraka, that is, for the lack of better word, hell, realm of hell, and chitta bhranti, confusion, more impurity, more pollution of the mind. Chitta shuddhi is purification of the mind, chitta bhranti is pollution of the mind. Therefore, dharma sustains us, nurtures us, leads to our overall well-being through, because it is a means to attain happiness, heaven, and purification of the mind, which in turn leads one to ultimate liberation or moksha. Now, till now we saw one kind of definition in the sense of what dharma is and what in the sense of the karma phala, because in the form of dharma refers to karma and it refers to a particular kind of karma which has a particular kind of karma phala. Now there is another definition from a different perspective which is present in the Mimamsa Shastra, where dharma is defined as that which is revealed by the Shabda Pramana, by the Shastras. So Jaimini in Mimamsa Sutra says, Chodana Lakshano Artho Dharma. Dharma is that which is indicated by the Chodana. Chodana Vakya means the injunctions, the Vidhi Nisheda Vakyas of the Veda. So Veda is considered as the utmost highest pramana for dharma for this reason, because dharma is defined as that which has been revealed by the Veda. And this is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that Tasmat Shastram Pramanam te karyam akarya vyavasthitau gnatva shastra vidhanoktam karma kartum mihar hasi. Therefore, the Shastras are the means to understand what actions should be performed and what actions should not be performed. That is, what actions are dharma, therefore should be performed, what actions are adharma, therefore not to be performed. Knowing this, the injunctions, the Vidhivakyas, the Nisheda Vakyas declared in the Shastras, one should perform actions in the world. So there cannot be no clarity, better clarity than Krishna and Bhagavad Gita. Those who say that we don't need Manusmriti, we don't need any other Smriti, only Gita is enough. Krishna's statement itself goes against that position. Because in the commentaries, Madhusudana Saraswati, Shankaracharya, and many others, they have all noted that the Shastra term in this verse refers primarily to Veda, but also to Smriti, Itihasa, Puranas, and other texts from which we can have authentic knowledge about Dharma. This we know from Manusmriti itself. Manusmriti says, Shrutistu Vedo Vigneyo, Dharmashastram tu Vaismriti, Te Sarvartheshva Mimamsye, Tabhyam Dharmo hi nirbhabhau. So basically it is saying Shrutistu Vedo Vigneyo. The Vedas should be known as the Shruti. The Dharmashastra, the Smritis are to be known as the Dharmashastras. On all matters related to Dharma, these two should not be criticized because Dharma is shown forth from them. That is, Dharma flows from it. Dharma is revealed from it. Therefore, this definition of Dharma is that it is that which is revealed in the Shruti and the Smriti. And this includes Itihas. Smriti includes the Smriti proper, such as Manusmriti, Parashara Smriti, Yajnavalkya Smriti, etc. But also includes Purana, Itihasa, etc. also. Yajnavalkya Smriti notes this. It includes Purana, Nyaya, Mimamsa, etc. in this list. So in short, then Dharma is something, because Dharma is something which cannot be known from other sources, such as pratyaksha, perception, inference. All this cannot reveal Dharma, because Dharma is not something which is perceived by our eyes and ears and nose and our senses, right? It is not empirically available. Dharma speaks about things which are adrishya, which are beyond our empirical means. So only Shastras, the Vedas, Smriti, etc., are the only means to have that knowledge. So dharma is a Shastric concept. So dharma is to be understood through Shastra. So when I say dharma is a Shastric concept, it does not mean that the applicability of dharma is merely an intellectual level. No. What I mean by dharma is a Shastric concept is dharma is an understanding, is a concept which is revealed by the Shastra. But it is something which exists on the ground. That is karma phala. Once you act, the action has to bear the fruit, and this action and karma phala, the fruit of action, happens on the ground to all of us in this world, right? So that is why this discourse on dharma is very important, because it helps us to evaluate our actions, evaluate the world around us, and take informed decisions, make informed choices that is most favorable to us, that is most likely to give us favorable results. Just a few more slides on few more nuances here. I already mentioned that dharma is that which is revealed in the form of injunctions and prohibitions. So that is what this Chodana Lakshano Artho Dharmaha, the Mimamsa statement means. So the Chodana Vakya is of two types, Vidhi Vakya and Nisheda Vakya. In the Veda, Mantra, Brahmana, Aranyak, Upanishads, there are many types of statements. There are Vidhi, there are Nisheda, there are Arthavada, Namadeya, mantras, and all those things. Among them, the most important are Vidhi and Nisheda. Because Vidhi and Nisheda are statements which reveal Dharma. Statement which
If we lost a little bit of the
form of don'ts. Don't commit violence, for example, or don't eat some poisonous food for these are the statements which reveal Dharma.
there are some points at which your audio is cutting out. We lost sometime. Just waiting for him to back.
I, mean, I got
Yeah,
disconnected.
we lost you for some time,
Uh,
and
what was
it
the
started
last
with a little bit
point?
of a.
Yeah, what was the last
I think
point you
you
lost?
dropped up. We just started on Nisheda and what is this one, and then so
Okay, okay. So let
want to
me.
share the screen again also.
Uh, I think just one or two more slides are there.
Okay.
I'll just quickly share it, right? And
Yeah.
we'll finish. Is it visible?
Yeah.
So I was here. Was it last?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, I was just telling that dharma is that which is revealed in the form of vidhi and nisheda vakyas. So vidhi is that statement which induces one to act. Like if you desire heaven, you have to do this yajna. So that is a inducement. And nisheda is that which prohibits some action. So for example, do not commit murder is a nisheda vakya. So dharma constitutes when the vidhi vakya, when one performs action in accordance with the vidhi vakya, that is dharma, or when one violates the vidhi vakya, that is when one does not act according to vidhi vakya, that becomes adharma. And it is in a very simple sense. There are many nuances here, of course. It depends upon whether the vidhi vakya is a nitya karma or a kamya karma. If it is an optional karma, if it is something that is not compulsory, then not doing that does not become adharma, right? So as far as nisheda vakya, however, is concerned, nisheda is prohibiting something. So if you avoid doing the something that has been prohibited, then it is dharma. But if you violate the prohibition rule and commit those actions, then it becomes adharma. So this is very, in a very simply put, in a very simple way. I just want to finish the presentation by discussing one important idea called apurva. So now we defined dharma as a reference to those actions, a designation of those actions which has the capability to give rise to the karma phala of sukha, swarga, chitta shuddhi. Whereas adharma are those actions which gives rise to the fruit of action in the form of dukkha, naraka, and chitta bhranti. But the question is, how does karma give rise to karma phala, especially when there's a time gap between actions and the result of action? That is, we do yagya now, but swarga comes to us after the death of the body, after many, many years, right? So how do we know, how does then this karma phala connection, causality actually function? So the Mimamsakas answer this question through the concept of apurva, and they say Kumarila Bhatta answers defines apurva as the potential which was absent before performance of an act and which is produced after performance of the act is known as apurva. Simply put, apurva or adrishta because it is unseen, apurva because it was not present before the performance of action. Simply put, when an action is performed, for example, an yajna or anything else, then that action leads to the result in the form of potency, which is called apurva. And this potency survives through time till such a time comes when it is time for it to give fruit, to actualize the fruit on the ground. So in this way, that action is performed today, that the karma phala fructifies in future, and that future may be after 10 days, after 10 months, after 10 years, after next life, or after 10 lives also. So it is this potency which is generated by the karma, and this potency stays with the jivatma who performs it. So this potency is what stays with one's, acts as the sanchita karma. You speak of sanchita karma and a portion of sanchita karma. Then when it is ready to bear fruit, it gives rise to prarabdha karma, and we take birth in this body, right? So it is this potency. An action generates a result in the form of potency, and this potentiality later, when the time is right, manifests on the ground. So, and this potency is of two types. One is punya, the other is papa. So, punya is the positive and beneficial potency generated by when one performs the actions prescribed by the Vidivakyas of Shastras. When one performs the dharma actions designated as dharma, papa is a negative and undesirable potency which is generated by the performance of actions prohibited by the Nisheda Vakyas of the Shastras, by the performance of adharmic actions. So, when you perform dharma actions designated as dharma, it gives rise to the apurva called punya, which in turn gives rise to karma phala of swarga, sukha, chitta shuddhi when the time is right, and ultimately to moksha. And when you do adharma, then it gives rise to apurva called papa. There it was punya, now it is papa, which results in naraka, dukkha, chitta bhranti, and further bondage to samsara. So this apurva is the missing link. It is what connects karma and karma phala. So we are all aware of the term papa punya, papa karma, punya karma. So this papa and punya are adrishta. They are unseen. They cannot be perceived by empirical, our senses, our eyes, nose, ears, etc. Right? And you cannot infer them on its own. So shastras have to be relied upon. When I say that dharma has to be understood from the shastra, it is because dharma refers to this punya and papa, which are all, adrishta, which are non-empirical in nature. We don't need to go through this. I'll just conclude so that we can focus on the discussion. So basically, to conclude, we saw that dharma in its foundational sense is a reference to karma or actions which uphold and sustain all beings, which are most beneficial and leads to overall well-being, which are the means to attain happiness, sukha, heaven, swarga, and chitta shuddhi, that is purification of the mind, eventually leading to moksha or liberation. And dharma is that which have been revealed by the Shruti, the Veda, the Smritis, and the other Shastras in the form of Vidhi and Nisheda Vakya, injunctions and prohibitions. And dharma constitutes in adherence to Vidhi and avoidance of Nisheda Vakya. And dharma facilitates one to attain Sukha, Swarga, etc. by the generation of apurva or potency called punya. So the actions which are opposite in nature to this and gives result which are contrary to those by dharma are called as adharma. So every other definition, other meaning, other interpretation of dharma, be it in the context of ethics, morality, law, governance, as cosmic order, in the context of ecology, everything has to be anchored in this foundational understanding of dharma and shastras. And shastras have to be taken as a guide in this endeavor. So this is very important. Just final comments. This is very important. I repeat again, because we today, there are some people who ask this, that all these texts are outdated. So can it help us to deal with current issues? It may be ecological issues, it may be issues of artificial intelligence, it may be genetics, whatever it is. My answer has always been yes, they are helpful, because our shastras, our fundamental texts, they all give rise to very fundamental blocks of knowledge which are eternal in nature. That is why we call it a Sanatana Dharma. So while the modern forms have changed, the fundamental questions remain same. For example, the framework of the framework of Samanya Dharma, which includes ahimsa, satya, asteya, etc. You can literally examine the whole world, every issue by these by the standpoint of view these dharmic principles. Similarly, many other concepts, many other frameworks, many other elements have been given in the Shastras, which are as relevant today as it was 10,000 years ago. It will be relevant 10,000 years henceforth. I end my short presentation now. We can go ahead to discussion, Ramesh.
Thanks. I think no, for some of us who accept that the Shastras are pramana when it comes to a guide and all of those things, to guide to Dharma and all that, we don't see the contradiction. But increasingly, we seem to be having a large group of people who are who say that they are part of the same dharmic fold, but who are not, but necessarily, you know, reject the Shastras themselves. They do not, not that they, I suspect, and I want you to take this up to suspect, is they reject the Shastras not because they think it, while one aspect of it is that they think it's not relevant to other things. The second is, I think it is also because of what you point out in the sense, it clearly lays out what is allowed and what is disallowed, and therefore they don't want to stick to those rules and other things and want to be free to do as they please. And this is the classical spiritual what are religious or any of those kind of things. So I just wanted your reaction on that when people say, we are spiritual, we are all this, we are this, we are that, but we don't. My point is that they don't want to simply follow any rules, and they want a laissez-faire kind of arrangement, and therefore they do it. But I wanted to hear from you also.
Yes, that is definitely true. I mean, that is true about all of us in sense, because uh, we are all products of our own times. We live in these times. We are influenced by these times. We are influenced by the discourses of these times, and it is also the nature of Kali Yuga itself that human capacity for many things have reduced. So the problem is not that many people are incapable of practicing the many stringent rules, regulations, etc. That is fine. We can be honest about it that many of the things I am unable to practice it. So I will practice it what is possible for me, or I will practice those aspects of dharma that I am capable of. That honesty, if one is there, then dharma is like a mother. Dharma is not is also like a father, but it is also like mother, and this motherly aspect is so huge that it has hundreds of thousands of different mechanisms, different paths given for people from different backgrounds, given for people with different uh, capacities. So for example, one says that I am unable to practice the path of karma anushtana in its complete sense. Fine. Then you can practice the path of bhakti. You can practice what is possible for you. Even Krishna, Bhagwan Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says, even doing a little bit of dharma keeps you away great fear. So we always say, even when we take sankalpa for a puja, what we say yathashakti karish. We do according to our strength, according to our capability. So the fundamental problem is not that we are not capable of doing something. It is the very mindset. It is that because to justify there is a dishonesty in deep down, I would say, because they want to justify their incapability by rejecting the shastras, rejecting what the shastras saying is as outdated, as not applicable today. So because it is not applicable today, then I am no longer responsible for not being able to do something. So this argument is ultimately is without any utility. It is not useful to those people or anybody else, Because now when you say such things, then you are actually discarding the methods and mechanisms for attaining sukha, swarga, chitta shuddhi and moksha. You are because no path is easy, no spiritual path is easy. Forget about Vaidika and paths which are controversial, which are daily abused for varnashrama dharma and all. Take the tantrika path. Is the path of tantra easy? Does it simply comes, you can eat popcorn and take diksha and somehow the goddess will appear to you on her own? It's not like that, right? You have to put in hard work. So I think there is a degree of dishonesty. This is a very I think huge term, very loaded term. I don't mean to criticize anybody, or I don't mean to uh, you know make anybody feel guilty or something. I simply mean that we all have to be honest to ourselves. Instead of bad mouthing shastras and all, we need to be honest, because only then we will be able to derive benefit from the shastras. So the purpose of the shastra, Shankaracharya says in the Brihadaranyaka Bhashya, that Shastra's purpose, Shastra cannot force anybody to do anything. Either to follow the vidhi or not to follow Nisheda. Shastras cannot force anybody. It cannot make a horse drink water. Shastra's purpose is like a lamp or the sun, which gives light, which reveals knowledge. What use of that knowledge we make is our free will. We can use it for our own good, or we can throw it in the garbage, call it names, or we can call it outdated, we can call it oppressive. It is not going to hurt the shastras. It will only be hurting or useful to us in the way we make use of it.
Correct. Yeah, I think that is the whole thing. And people also have to understand that these are things that have been established and has worked for several thousand years. That has worked for several people. It's not like it is suddenly written and nobody has tried it and it does not work. Like all of these procedures that are laid out and all of those have worked. And those who want to get to some place, get achieve something, will have to follow the rules. We are perfectly fine following rules when we are in a secular establishment like an office space, for example. But we don't want to do it when it comes to these things. I think your point about the other point about, it may not be possible for all of us to be following all the steps that are part of Shastras. But that does not give anybody the right to reject it also. So in the sense that you're saying that because it is something that is not something that has been arbitrarily written. Somebody sat somebody sat and wrote down 110 points and said, okay, then I want to give trouble these fellows. Let us write down 10 things that are very difficult to do. Let them go ahead and make it as difficult as possible. These are things that have been tried out. After they have been tried out, okay, works, does not work, and therefore that is why those that do not work will also be listed as things. Don't do these things. Do these things. Don't do this.
See, I think the biggest problem today is uh, deep secularization of the society, by which I mean that the we are a society, Sanatana Dharma, all life is sacred. Everything is sacred. So Sanatana Dharma has a tendency to sacralize everything. Even a small activity that we do, such as cleaning in our house, can be turned into a karma yoga, can be turned into an offering of the divine to the divine, right? But secularization has acted in the reverse way. It has completely removed it has removed whatever is possible from the sacred realm, and whatever is left of the sacred realm, it has been put into a particular sideline, completely into superstition, categories of superstition, religion, personal practice, something which is all this adrishta, everything that is non-empirical have been branded as superstition. So what happens, even if we don't uh, realize that we don't call it superstition in our day to day life, it has been so deeply embedded that we think that, for example, killing animals for consuming is okay. But giving animal as a sacrifice, Pashubali, to the Devata in a temple is not okay. It is not okay because that is superstition. The first one is okay because I am using it for myself. You see why the
mm,
similar behavior in a religious context becomes wrong, but we are killing hundreds of thousands of animals for consumption. And the same is in every other aspects also. The same is applicable because the following rules you mentioned about in a context of a school or a college or a office, that is okay because that is empirical. But following rules in a context of a ritual, for example, it is not empirical. Well, the phala is about devata, which we cannot see. Therefore, the assumption is that it is does not exist. There is a
mm.
deep atheism which is present in the society, despite the fact that many people may have some notional belief, some belief in some deity or some thing, but still this secularization of the society, desacralization of society, especially in urban spaces, is very, very deep, very, very prevalent.
See, one of the things that I'm also, thinking of is, uh, while it is true that, the establishments are all secular, our polity is secular, to a large extent, our cultural spaces also have become secular. Nobody is coming into our houses and telling you that you have to be secular inside your houses. For some reason, we seem to have taken this. Okay, one of the things is the strongest influences where the secular establishment has managed to get into our minds is because they have done institutional capture. You have schools that teach you about secular things. You have colleges and institutions that teach you. But nobody is coming into your houses and telling you you should not do this, you should not do that, don't practice this, don't practice that. At least that has not happened. But still, none of us or most of us do not practice even things within our own houses. I think this is a central point that needs to be addressed. You can, before we worry about the secularization of our, while it is true that our cultural spaces have been taken over, they have been secularized. What is preventing us from being true to our dharma, true to our shastras, true to what we inside our houses? To a large extent, I also blame the previous generation, our son who did not stick to it and wanted all of these things. But shouldn't we be at least starting with setting things up inside the house, saying, "Okay, inside my house, I am not going to be secular. I'm going to be doing all the things." There is a certain amount of laziness that has come in. I use the word laziness in the aspect of not wanting to do some things. You're okay with doing many things, spending time watching something on television, on a streaming service or anything, but not necessarily in practicing this.
Yeah, I think you're very correct that when I said secularization, I meant this also in the sense that the our previous for the last one or two generations, they have been focusing so much on earning the artha and kama that
Mm.
dharma has been completely sidelined in many families, most families. So the reason, and on one hand, you go to schools, you have your brain completely brainwashed. You are taught that scientific temper. You're taught about how crackers in Deepavali are polluting. How how see it's a complete mental colonization which happens in the school, right? And the school and the college and the whole education system, wherein whatever little bit of culture and dharma would have left in your mind, they are completely removed. But the problem starts at home itself, because while growing up in the very impressionable years, the children are not taught. The only time the children are involved in some form of religious practice, dharmic practice, is during some one or two festivals that is celebrated at home. It may be Ganapati festival, it may be Deepavali, and even there the ritualistic aspect is nowadays very less and less happening. And even when it happens, there is no conscious involvement. The focus is not is less on the worship and devotion and puja, and more on non-essential things such as we have to do clean the house, decorate the house, invite so many people, we have to give them food, you have to decorate everything so that it looks good for the when the people come. All these have their own value. I'm not saying these are not important, but point is, if you're doing a puja, if you're doing a festival, our first most important aspect has to be the devata, right? That to develop the devotion with the devata. So that is being kinare, the exhibitionism has increased. So these are all, in a way, step by step. The children are not slowly, they see their parents, and they see their relatives, they see their friends everywhere, the making a career, having a settled life economically. That becomes the goal in life. Being a dharmika person is no longer a goal in life. People are not even introduced the term dharma at all while growing up. Many don't even know what is dharma, right? So otherwise this episode would not have been needed at all if everybody was aware of dharma. So the point is, uh, it happens at the beginning, at the home itself. So you are very correct in saying that the rectification also has to start at home. It has to start with parents. Parents has to start practicing, start inculcating dharmika values in their life, dharmika practices in their life, and then pass it on in a more intelligible and conscious manner rather than a mechanistic manner. So that is another issue. The parents practicing something and then asking their kids to practice the same thing without explaining the symbolism or meaning or the importance of it. You have
They
to
should
do this
know.
what I am telling you to do.
First, they should be aware of the uh, of doing anything. First, they should do, and then they should. Then comes awareness. Even that, they don't seem to be
But
aware
that
of
is
anything.
okay. But problem
It's
is
a
awareness is not there at all. See, but
Yeah, absolutely.
take the menstruation practices. When I wrote the book, so many people responded to me. Many women, when I did a talk across India, I was not sure how it would be received by the women audience. But many of them came and told me that they were never aware about these reasons. Their parents, grandparents, aunts, they were never told them these reasons. So, because they themselves might have not known, it does not mean the reasons are non-existing. So it means that the reasoning, the knowledge, somehow at some point in time, maybe 50 years back, 100 years back, or 200 years back, there was a break in that knowledge. So people continued the external practice, but it was done in a mechanistic manner, not in a conscious manner. So this mechanistic practice will not survive for one or more than one or two generation, because there will be dilution of each generation, because each generation will feel this is not needed, this is not important, because they're not knowing why it is being done, right? So this is happening in all aspects. In TV serials, they often show the younger generation not interested in the puja happening at the, they're saying, I'm sitting just like that. uh, that happens at the homes also. Why? Because the younger generation have been allowed to become distracted with too many things, and they have not been, there is element of shraddha bhakti have not been cultivated in them. There is a age when it can be easily cultivated, when the children are very very small. They learn by seeing, they are very interested in learning new things. Now I can see, my daughter is 2.5 years now. When I do puja, she always comes from behind. She also wants to become involved. So she takes up this akshate and puts it on the vigraham. She likes doing it. She does not know the philosophy, the symbology, everything, but she knows something what I have told, that this is Bhagavan, this is mother, this is mata, this she should be, you should do pranam to her. And there's a photo of Shankaracharya of Sringeri. Every day in the morning, I ask her to, do the pranam to Guruji. So whenever she sees that photo, she recognizes it's a Guruji and she does the pranam on her own. Now she has
mm,
learned that she has to, it has to be done. She has seen me doing, she does it. So this is the age when to teach. Once they become teenage, then they start asking questions. They no longer do things. So then that is the time to explain things to them, right? This is the time to implement, instill things, and then to explain. But nowadays neither inculcation is happening nor explanation is happening, because the parental generation, even our generation, many we have already lost that. Now we have to recover that first, and then we can transmit it.
yes. And also on that note on menstruation, all of that. So it's only the other day there was a discussion on social media when we were talking about, and one of the discussions also was about how many families have actually been ruined because they have not followed the fundamental principles of shaucha during this period. During the period of menses, I think uh, rejecting this things like defiling the sacred spaces by going to them when so because the question that many people ask will also be, why is it only for women, why not for men? It is not a question of men or women here. This particular period of time is when they are in a permanent state of ashaucha, at least for the duration of that wherein there is no possibility of of ensuring shaucha during the period of
3 days.
this menstruation. Therefore, so while see the and so this so these aspects, what I'm
But
although you did mention about many women coming up to you and telling you that they were not
but
aware of things,
yeah,
all of
but
these things.
when
I yeah, I also
uh,
know that many women have taken strong objection. I've seen some of the debates and discussions that you have had and other
yes.
things. So how has that been? I mean, what has that
See,
tell us and
what was interesting to me was from the interactions that I had, I realized, but yeah, also from reading some papers on these topics, I realized that the restriction regarding worship is still prevalent predominantly
Mm,
among Hindu women, young girls, even though they may or may not realize the reasoning, they may not know the reasoning, but still that practice, at least this one practice of not going to temple or not doing going to the puja
mm,
house within the house, it is still prevalent. So all the violations that is happening is a more recent phenomenon, and especially in urban context.
mm,
Perhaps maybe
mm,
last 20, 30 years it has been happening, but otherwise, largely, by and large, while other restrictions, other life regimens, especially from Ayurvedic perspectives, all those are not being practiced. This one practice has prevailed largely, not 100%, but maybe 70, 80%, I don't know. So that was my experience. But yes, increasingly, again, these are being questioned from a feministic perspective. The debates you might have seen would be from that
mm,
perspective. That why men can do this but women can do not cannot do that and all. So again, this is again the issue of discourse. This is all a fundamental civilizational fight at a discourse level. So the school, the education system is supposed, uh, previously in our education system, the holistic education system is that it's a time to instill civilizational values, civilizational drishti to the children. But now, for the learning years, the children are imbibing not the cultural civilizational values of Sanatana Dharma, but they are imbibing modern Abrahamic values, which have been repackaged as scientific temper and the modernity, scientific temper, and such things. So what goes in the name of science and scientific temper is nothing but rejection of all sacredity, all sacrality, sacred traditions, and implementation of pure materialism. So that
and why
is what
even
happened. Yeah. Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
correct.
Yeah.
And this whole habit of wanting everything to be uh, proved through science or proved by science, and then you will accept whatever. These are completely different streams. You cannot approach. I mean, why do you even bring science into this whole business? Is question that not many people are understanding. If science also supports that, well and good, but you can't approach this only through the methods of validation that are uh, available to science, because there are experiences and states which are well beyond what science has reached or seen. So that critical understanding also, while it is there in quite a few people now, and there is a revival that we see, even that is now we are slowly seem to be losing out on, which is another concern that needs to be looked at.
Yes, and actually these are all connected. Again, I come back to the point about school education being the school and college education being the greatest impediments, greatest cause of mental colonization, because you all the cultural knowledge, all this religious knowledge or spiritual knowledge is put in the realm of faith, and implication is that they are just a matter of belief, just matter of superstition. It is not a question of it. They are not truth, right? They are not reality, and confining and defining truth to only the scientific realm or the empirical realm, so to say, and the methods of verification and falsification used as universal methods. So this is the heart of the problem. This is how we learn. This is we the children don't even realize that they are being brainwashed in this perspective, in this approach to the world. And you see there is hard sciences, that is all good, but then there is social sciences. There all the religious texts are historicized. So the texts are no longer sacred. They are not sacred texts, eternal texts having eternal truths which are relevant here and now. But they are all historical tombs. They are all relics of history. Somebody wrote it at some point of time, and then there is, of course, the whole discourse of reformation. The Shankaracharya reformed, Disacharya reformed. Whether there's all bogus. Many of Shankaracharya was never a reformist. It's a bogus propaganda. But this is a propaganda which exists, that Hindu Dharma had problems, has problems. It is in need of continuous reformation. So what does that make religious practices? It makes these religious practices not a practice to attain some nishreyasa, abhyudaya nishreyasa, but these are all simply some humans attempt at finding some meaning, some blind leading the blind, so subject to change with time, etc. And these religious books are also creations of humans, based on their own thinking and assessing. See how this all logically falls into this whole narrative they have created. So in whole this in this whole endeavor, what is lost is the fundamental understanding that is very crucial for approaching Hindu textual tradition, the Hindu knowledge tradition, is the notion of pramanas. We do not accept that pratyaksha is the only pramana. Pratyaksha is most important pramana. The empirical knowledge is important pramana, but it is not the only pramana. There are 6 pramanas, of which the Shabda Pramana is also a valid pramana. So Shabda Pramana is what distinguishes Sanatana Dharma from science. The Shabda Pramana in the sense of Veda. There is some form of Shabda Pramana even in science. We read, for example, physics textbooks that this is there, this is there, this is there. We don't actually go and do experiments for everything, right?
Yeah.
But people accept physics textbooks for knowing physics, but they don't accept Upanishads for knowing about Brahman. So this kind of
Because for them,
this is
they're
a
not very keen on that.
this is a
For them,
mental
all this
colonization.
material wealth is Brahman. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is a mental colonization wherein the among the 4 purusharthas, Dharma and moksha are completely removed from the equation. Only artha and kama is focused. And and nowadays with modern Vedanta movements, the moksha has been put back into the equation, and it is a good thing. But somehow the dharma is still at the receiving end, because many modern acharyas, because of the socio-political situations, they thought of focusing on the moksha part while ignoring the dharma part. But the point is, you cannot attain moksha without dharma, because dharma, as I quoted from Parashara Smriti, Parashara Madhava, dharma is the means to attain moksha also. It is the indirect means. So we are in a very funny situation, very unfortunate situation today.
Um, so what do you see as the way forward? How do you see? Do you see one of the things that I've been saying, and is that we are reaching a situation where there is going to be a small group of people who would continue to keep this going, where a large group of people will nominally claim to be Hindus while not practicing any of the things. I mean, the whole idea of dharma is that it has to be practiced, not just spoken about or read about. So my own take on this is that we are reaching a stage where we are going to have fewer and fewer people who subscribe to the dharmic injunctions, and a large population that is going to be, for lack of a better word, political Hindus, who will be politically Hindu but have zero connect with the dharmic substratum. So, which would mean that it will become increasingly difficult for us to be able to keep the dharma intact. So, how do you see things panning out, and what are the possible ways of addressing this critical issue? I mean, it's not as simple as a group of people simply, burning the Dharmashastra, which is taken as the only important thing, but not, rejecting it mentally or verbally is also equal, same or equivalent of burning the this one.
See, I think a few years back I wrote an article on Panchakosha of Hindu society, wherein I
Mm.
basically argued about how at the outermost level are nominal political Hindus, and then at the inner levels we have a cultural Hindu, then we have practical Hindu, and then we have the siddha or accomplished Hindu in the form of gurus and acharyas. So I think a polytheistic tradition like that is supposed to be that way, in some sense, that the accomplished and the practicing people will always be a very small group, and but the other ones who are more lesser into practice, or who are more nominal in their adherence, is uh, volume wise more. That is okay. But the problem is today is that the outer concentric circles, the political Hindus and all, they are hostile to the inner core. So that is the problem. It is not, the issue I see is not for me, that the practicing Hindu are comparatively less than the volume of the political or political cultural Hindus is not an issue. For the issue for me is that the political Hindus and political cultural Hindus have taken up the guns against the core itself, rather than putting the guns on the outer enemies, is the problem. So, and they want to fundamentally change the core. So their work is to defend the Hindu civilization, but in the name of defense they want to change the very core. So this is problematic, because once Hindu Dharma, you remove all the core elements, all the core Shastras. First they burned Manusmriti, now they are abusing Ramacharitmanas. Tomorrow they will come for Valmiki Ramayana, the next they will come for Mahabharata, then they will come for everything. See, you can find controversies, you can find problems everywhere, because the only, if your only solution to all form of criticism is to say that this text is not authentic, this text is a later interpolation, this text has been distorted, this text does not represent me, so I will discard it, I will throw it into a dustbin, I will burn it, then there will come a day then there will nothing remain of Hindu Dharma in the nothing remain of Dharma in Hindu Dharma, right? So that is a greater problem. So as I see it, if the our work should be to protect this core and to offer clarification where needed, to create awareness among others about the authenticity, the authentic knowledge about the core practices and core beliefs and practices. And I don't know how it is to be done because I see a lot of hostility. But if this and this, but it is needed to be done that the political and cultural core are in alignment with the core, the cultural and political circle, the outer circumference is in alignment with the core. They may not practice it, but they should not subvert it. See, even in the past, for example, those who were into deep sadhana were always very small core. So the Vaidika Brahmanas, they lived in some small agrarams in a large kingdom. The rest of the kingdom were not into too much of these Vaidika practices. The Veda was protected by a very small people. And even among other communities who were into this into puja in a temple, or who were doing sadhana of various different sampradayas, they were always small number of people, those who were into hardcore sadhana. The rest of the people were into more of a diluted samanya dharma version, that whatever you are doing for livelihood, you do that, but do it in an ethical manner. And remember Bhagavan once, that the story of Narada and that pot maker, right? Vishnu says this pot maker is a greater devotee, and when Narada went and saw, he took Vishnu's name once in the morning, once in the night, and he went on with his work throughout the day. So, so that was the simple nature of living for most people, and that is fine. There is nothing wrong in that. So the wrong is that when that simple nature becomes corrupted and becomes used as a victimhood narrative to build narratives of oppression, build narratives of exclusion, build narratives of political expediency. You are trying to kind of attack the core. You're trying to subvert the core. You're trying to prevent those who want to live a life according to the Shastras from not living a life, even in a personal sense, even in a private sense, within the confines of my home. There is an attempt to prevent that. There is an attempt to fundamentally redefine the our Sanatana Dharma. That is problematic. Otherwise, it's okay, right? It is perfectly okay to even say that, look, I do not believe in these particular teachings because I do not find them suitable to me. I do not find them as acceptable to my thought. So I will follow what I want to follow. That is accept completely fine. But it is not fine to say that because these texts are saying these things that I don't like, so these texts must be problematic. These texts are interpolation. These texts are biased, prejudiced. They have to be burned. That is not a problem. That is a problem then. And we also have this very problematic approach of attributing all kinds of social problems that we currently see onto the Shastras,
onto the
superimposing them.
Shastras.
So that
Onto the
creates
Shastras,
the
and
issue.
those who follow the Shastras are the villains now.
Yes, and those who even remotely say that, look, there may be some things good in them, some things which are useful to us, some things which are very good in them. Even that becomes ultra orthodoxy. So unfortunately,
And
we have come to that stage.
in at a time when people talk of freedom of expression, freedom, rights, and all those things, why is it that the rights of those who want to preserve their way of life, in one sense, for example, if I want to lead a Shastraic life, why can it not be my right? Even if I say that I want to uh, leave out a few things, not do certain things, or not be part of certain things that are considered This one, even if it's my right, right? So if you even make it from the say from the angle of these very people who talk of the constitution every day, if you talk of it even from the rights angle, my right, my right to follow the Dharmashastra should be protected. But even that, but that is an argument that nobody wants to accept or agree to. So it is a right as long as it is, so,
See, all
you
are
know,
equal, but some people are more equal than others.
uh, and interestingly, the Constitution also says, equals should be treated as equals and unequals should not be treated as equals. So, which means that in that sense, we also fall into the category of unequals. So we have to, so we have to be provided with the necessary support structures. But several questions and uh, few answers. So we are about 1 hour and 20 minutes into the discussion,
Yes.
and we I also want to take this opportunity to look at what are the possible topics we can discuss going forward. I think we have done about 3 episodes. I think in several of these episodes we have touched upon, in one sense, the critical aspect. We have tried to look at what is Dharma itself. Today we looked at the fundamental definitions of Dharma and what are the benefits that accrue from for those who follow in the footsteps of Dharma. We also did one session on a kind of Q&A, right? I mean, we where we looked at, let's ask some questions that had come through. So if you can also give some glimpse in terms of what are the next episodes that we can look at. Maybe we also want to look at addressing specific questions that seem to be, uh, getting repeated again and again, specific to the Shastras. Maybe we should look at that as the next approaches that we want to take in the
I think that
conversations
is
that
a yes, I think that is a good idea. While we may discuss offline about all the topics we want to cover, but it is good. It will be a good idea to do one webinar where beforehand you invite questions from people about dharma, about dharma shastras, some fundamental misunderstandings, and we can take up those questions during the session.
right.
So if we have some 10 or 20 questions. Then we can deal with them over the course of 2 or 3 episodes or something like that. So it's a good idea. We should definitely pursue that.
So, on that note, should we call an end to this today's episode and then look at focusing on that?
Yes, definitely. My,
Unless
my
there are, and if there are some concluding remarks that you have, you want to do.
yes. So my final point is we may be living in. I think now it's 21st century, right? Or is it
Hmm.
22nd? So we may be
Yeah,
living
good
in.
question.
Yeah. So we may be living in 2023, but just like a man living 10,000 years back, perhaps, or even 2,000 years back, we also want to be happy. All of us want sukha,
Hmm.
and none of us want dukkha. Dharma is the means to control, is the means to attain sukha and dukkha at the end of the day. So, why dharma is eternally relevant is simply for this reason that it is dharma alone which can give us sukha, and adharma gives us dukkha. And this is not going to change because we are living in a post-colonial 21st century industrialized society. An industrialized society person wants happiness as much as a agri society or feudal society person wanted. So we we are missing the forest for the trees when we think that by seeing some random quotes or by seeing certain aspects in the vyavahara portions of the dharmashastras which deal with legal and other aspects, and thinking no, now we have our constitution, so then the whole dharmashastra is not needed at all. Then that is a classic mistake. It's a mistake as much as good as saying that I don't need sukha and dukkha. Dharma, adharma, and the whole dharma shastras, reveal a mechanism through which you can control your actions. You can you can have a control over that adrishta phala of papa and punya, which is beyond control otherwise. So by dharma and adharma, by this understanding your dharma, then you are able to have some indirect control your future, your future happiness, your future sorrow, right? So this is my message. It is in this sense that as long as the Srishti exists, dharma will be relevant, dharmic discourse will be relevant, and since dharma is relevant, Dharmashastras have to be relevant, because there is no way to know about dharma other than the Shastras. Dharma is not something you and I can simply, you know, simply on our whims and fancy cook something up, right? It has to be revealed by Bhagavan. It has been revealed by Ishvara in the Veda, and then through the rishis such as Manu, Yajnavalkya, Parashara through the Smritis, and through Vyasa in the Itihasa Puranas, and they all have revealed this and given to us in a format that is prevalent today at the beginning of Kali Yuga for the guidance in Kali Yuga. Now it is left to us whether we want to attain sukha by by rooting ourselves in the dharma, or we are okay with living a life based on chance, coincidence, luck, thinking that whatever we want to do, you only live once, you don't face any consequence. Once you die, then you will know that what consequence you will have to face, because as you are leaving, if you think that this is only one life, after death you will know that that was not so. Then it will be a oops moment, but you won't be able to help it. So this is my final comment. Thank you, Ramesh. Shri Gurubhyo Namah.
Jai Shri Ram. And I think this is a great point. I think without without the Dharma Shastras, there is no Dharma. I think that is the critical take-home message that we have from today's podcast. As discussed, we will have a sort of a Q&A where we take up specific questions related to the Dharma Shastras in subsequent episodes. And thank you, Nitin, once again. Always a pleasure to conversation with you, whether online or offline. So, thank you. And thank you all for joining. A recording of this will be posted. Thank you.